Good afternoon. I'm Susan Durr, and I'm the chair of the Professionalism Committee. I want to welcome you all to this year's professionalism ceremony honoring Fred Zuch. I'd like to start by thanking the Akron Bar Association staff who worked so hard to put the event together. Hopefully, the technical difficulties will be minimal. You know, each year the Professionalism Dinner was one of my favorite events because it focuses on everything that's good in our profession. I wish that we could all be here in person so that Fred could see you all here, thanking him for who he is and what he's done. I wish you could feel the energy that would be in the room. But when we started planning the event, Omicron was rampant, so here we are. But the virtual platform will allow us to hear from more people, so that's a good thing. You know, professionalism encompasses a lot of traits, and each of you would probably define it differently, but we all know it when we see it. It includes a high level of excellence, going above and beyond the basic requirements. The lawyer's creed uses words like integrity, courtesy, civility, honesty, responsibility, and service. And that's why we're here today, to honor one of our own who exemplified those qualities, who went above and beyond throughout his career. Fred was a career prosecutor, often handling the most difficult cases. Regardless of the stakes in a case, Fred never cut corners, never bent the truth. I cannot remember a time on this committee when we've received so many letters in support of a nomination. I think everyone's comments were summed up nicely by Judge Lynn Callahan, who wrote, "If Fred Zuch told you it was so, then you could be assured that it was so." So we're here today to say thank you, Fred, for setting such a wonderful example, one that hopefully we all aspire to. And thanks to each one of you out there listening who strive every day to be an example of professionalism in our community. Now, normally, I'd be telling you to sit back, relax, and enjoy your dinner before the program. Well, we're not feeding you today, but please sit back, relax, and enjoy some words of congratulations from some of Fred's friends and colleagues.
My name is Judge Tom Teodosio, 9th District Court of Appeals, and thank you for zooming in to this well-deserved presentation of the Professionalism Award to Fred Zuch. Fred, it was an honor to nominate you for this award. Your career epitomizes the word professionalism, and I can't think of a more deserving recipient. Your reputation of being an excellent prosecutor, one who was fair, open, always calm and well prepared, and you treated lawyers so well during your career in the legal profession. What I think about when I think of Fred Zuch is when I was a young attorney, I would have breakfast and lunch with my mentors, older attorneys, and they gave me the best piece of advice I had ever had, and that was that as an attorney, your reputation for honesty and integrity will be the cornerstone of your career. And Fred, that is an exact description of your career as a lawyer, so I want to congratulate you and wish you and your family the best.
Hello, my name is Judge Patricia Cosgrove. I'm a retired Summit County Common Pleas judge. Prior to becoming judge, however, I was an assistant Summit County prosecutor starting in 1981. I joined Lynn Slaby's staff, and Fred Zuch was the chief criminal prosecutor. Now, I'd come from the city prosecutor's office where I had tried hundreds of cases, more than 50 jury trials. However, I got my docket as an assistant Summit County prosecutor, and 2 weeks later, I was scheduled to try an aggravated murder case. I went to Fred and I said, "Fred," I said, "would you be able to assist me with this aggravated murder case?" He said, "Sure." And then I learned why Fred Zuch had such a great reputation for being a trial attorney. We must have interviewed the witnesses 3, 4, 5 times just to make sure that we hadn't missed anything. Fred is an inspiration over the years, over the decades, to hundreds of prosecutors, hundreds of defense attorneys, and most important, I think, the public, because he engendered a feeling that you were going to get a fair shake. You were a defendant, you were going to get a fair shake. The state was going to get a fair shake. It is impossible, really, to put into words the wonderful gifts that Fred has imparted over the decades to many, many people. I'm so pleased that he's getting this Professionalism Award. Now, I want to tell you a few things about Fred, besides his unique ability to interview witnesses over and over and prepare a case. He was the consummate professional. I had a case once in which it was a rape case. I felt the physical evidence did not justify prosecution, wasn't jiving with anything the prosecuting witness said. I went to Fred and I said, Fred, I cannot try this ethically. And Fred said, Pat, if you feel you cannot try it ethically, then do not try it. And I dismissed it the next day. I will give you another example. J. Dean Caro, who's was a professor at the University of Akron, 25 years ago was asked by Fred Zuch to examine a criminal file that he had handled decades before, just to make sure he had not inadvertently left out favorable evidence to the defense. Dean did his impartial, independent review and found there was no misconduct. But again, what a tribute to a prosecutor to have the courage to say, look at my file and make sure that I didn't do anything inappropriate. Rule 3.8 of the Professional Rules of Conduct state that a prosecutor is not just an advocate, but you're a minister of justice. And Fred took that concept to the maximum. He was everything that you would want in a trial attorney and a person. Criminal Rule 16 was enacted in 2010, or was toughened in 2010, to allow for open file discovery in criminal cases. Long before that change, Fred Zuch had an open file discovery policy. When we had a case, we gave the defense the file, they looked at it, and that was long before Criminal 16 ever was enacted. On the wall in granite of the Thomas Moyer Justice Center in Columbus, there are words carved that include compassion, equity, honesty, truth. And I think all of those things Fred Zuch embodied as the chief criminal prosecutor for the Summit County Prosecutor's Office. Fred, I want to thank you for helping me and helping hundreds, if not thousands of others know what the practice of law truly means, and that is to have integrity, compassion, and to always seek the truth. Congratulations on your Professionalism Award. It is so well deserved.
Hi there, this is Judge Allison McCarty. With me is my colleague, Judge Chris Croce, and also Attorney John Brevin, and we're here to give a big rah-rah to Fred Zuch and congratulate him on winning the Professionalism Award. We decided to do it in the courtroom because really that's where Fred excelled, and we learned so much from him, and it's a tribute to his stewardship of the office and his mentoring that so many of us from that time have moved on and become trial lawyers and judges. So I just wanted to point out that I always tried to take Fred's advice, and one of the things I always tried to do in a trial was use his points of evidence. He did it on a chalkboard. Now we have all kinds of technology. So I'm not sure what Fred would make of all this technology here in the courtrooms, but I wanted to say thank you so much for all you did for us, and congratulations, Fred. Hi, Fred. If there's ever been a person that deserves this award, it's clearly you. I know you won't think that because you've always been very humble, but one of my first memories of when I started, and I can't believe it was been over 22 years since you've been in the office, was I went to you for some advice, and the first thing you said to me on a plea was, "What do you think?" which had never happened before in any situation. So the fact that I was able to talk through it with you and to take your and heed your advice, but also your willingness to kind of give us that confidence that we knew what we were doing and you had confidence in us to resolve those cases and work our cases truly is a testament to you and your leadership. And if there's anybody deserving of this award, I'm so happy that it's you.
And Fred, just to parrot what Chris said, you are absolutely the most deserving person of this award. When I think back, when I was a young prosecutor, like so many of us were, we always had the ability to walk into your office and talk to you about an issue that we had because we knew that you had seen it before. And you mentored so many young prosecutors, and some of them became judges and some of them became top trial attorneys. And there are so many people that owe so much of their success to you. And I just want to say thank you.
I'm honored as I look around the boardroom here at the Akron Bar Association. Boy, I feel privileged to have been a lawyer sworn in back in November of 1973, and just there's an aura in this room that precedes me, and I have a lot of thankfulness on my heart as I say this. And I know I'm following a group of professionals who will be honoring Fred too, and I'm privileged also to be in their company. Why did I nominate Fred Zuch for this prestigious award? Oh, Fred surely is my friend, but that's not really why I nominated him. It's because, this award was created to recognize an attorney's exceptional dedication to the standards of the profession. And really, that's what Fred was all about, and that's why he's my friend. That became before the friendship that we share and the memories that I treasure with Fred Zuch. Just yesterday, coincidentally, Paula Gearinger came to my home to pick up my wife. They were going to lunch, with the bar auxiliary group. And I told Paula that I was going to be interviewed today. And I said, Paula, if you don't mind, may I ask you? And I said, and be careful here because I'm going to quote you. And I said, what was it about Buck? What was it about Buck Gearinger? I know your wife and now widow, but what was it about him as a lawyer that you fondly remember? It didn't take long for her to say, Larry, it was his joy. He enjoyed the profession. He enjoyed the people that he worked with. And when I think of that, I can translate that to Fred Zuch. I enjoy Fred Zuch. I enjoyed working with Fred back in the 70s. I enjoy our friendship now, and I enjoy the memories of that man. And Fred, don't worry, I'm not going to go on here and tell all the stories and the secrets of our deep friendship along the way. But Fred and I first connected, it was 1974 when I joined the Summit County Prosecutor's Office under then Summit County Prosecutor Fred Zuch. Fred had been there a year. Fred was the head of the appellate division, which he helped start. And in 1974, it was quite a time because the Ohio Revised Criminal Code had been newly enacted in 1974. And there were any number of changes in the substantive and procedural laws relating to the criminal court system and the criminal justice system. Fred and I ultimately would come together in the career criminal program, which essentially Fred helped get started, along with the blessing of Stephen Gabalak, and both of us collaborated on the prosecution of habitual violent offenders. And we grew close. And back at that time in 74, with the death penalty having been reenacted, and there was a lot of pressure on the office. There was a lot of practical and political pressure on the office in so many ways. So many beautiful associates that we had in the prosecutor's office. And along the way, I worked with Fred Zuch on any number of trials. I worked with him in the career criminal program. We traveled together, whether it was to continuing education credits for prosecuting attorneys or just to go to different places to interview witnesses. And you can imagine the bond that we formed as a result of this. What are the standards of a career prosecutor? And I mentioned in the letter in support of this award for Fred, that this may be the first time that a career prosecutor has received the award. I'm not sure, and I may be wrong, but what are the professional standards? And it always comes back to the duty, the role of a prosecuting attorney is not to convict, but to see that justice is done. And that word justice, the definition is very elusive. But I got to confess to too often getting caught up in the winning and the competition of a trial. And Fred was always a mediating presence. You know, I mentioned in my letter here, and I reviewed it, that some words I think about for Fred: competence, highly competent, knew the law. Judges relied on Fred. You know, when they asked him for his interpretation of the law, or merely what does the law say about this, I relied on Fred. You know, because of his scholarship, his legal scholarship. You know, I think of him as a collaborator, collaboration. You know, and I'm not just talking with those of us who had the privilege to work with him. He collaborated, in essence, with those who were, you know, on the other side of the table, so to speak. It was all about justice to Fred. You know, he was a strong advocate of open file discovery. You know, no need to withhold evidence. No need to chance that you might be withholding evidence which was favorable to the accused. You know, no need to make this an ordeal. Trial work is tough enough. You know, and let's say that word ordeal, I'm laughing now, but that was a word Fred often used when we were out and about, or when things would get difficult. Larry, let's not make this an ordeal. You know, let's get back to our grounding. You know, it's all about justice. And, you know, Fred was also a classy guy, you know, and when I say that, I mean an honorable man. Buck Gearinger, in the times I had an opportunity to be with him, or even, you know, a couple times there when he was a special prosecutor and I was on the other side, so to speak, he was an honorable man. I could trust him. And speaking of trust, you know, along the way, you know, after I left the office in 1980, you know, I worked with people that Fred led, so to speak. You know, Fred, just an honorable guy, and any number of men and women who worked in the prosecutor's office, who work with Fred from the bench or otherwise, I think have nothing but good things to say about him. Oh, sure, he was as human as the rest of us. He had his moments, but he was able to step away and contemplate what his work was all about. You know, I applaud him. I honor him. Fred, you know I love you. And Cinda, thanks for being supportive of Fred along the way. You know, God bless you. Fred, I congratulate you for this award. And Susan, I understand that you're going to pick it up from here. So thank you for allowing a number of us to say a few good words about our buddy, Fred Zuch. Thank you.
Thanks to all of you for sharing your memories and stories about Fred. Our first speaker today is Mike Callahan. Mike, I'm sure, is well known to most of you. He served on all sides of the aisle as a judge, defense attorney, and as a prosecuting attorney, where he worked with Fred Zuch for many years. I'm sure he has many stories to tell. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mike Callahan.
25 years ago, Fred Zuch retired. I know that because I was there. I was the master of ceremonies at the retirement party. I can't believe it has been that long. I can't believe that that he's been gone from the legal community that long. He had everybody that was anybody in the legal and the law enforcement community present that night. There's a lot of folks that are gone. And boy, they'd all be very proud of you, Fred, from Marion to Wilkie to Lee to Duval, Lolly and Pat and Betty from the office, folks that would be so very proud to know that you've gotten this award. I reflected on that night, and I remember thinking some things about it, including the fact that, damn, Fred, you were old then, and it's 25 years now down by. I also started looking over some things that you'd done in the past and when you started so I could talk about those. And I realized that since it's been that long, you've spent more time planting trees than you were in the prosecutor's office. And I find that hard to believe as well. And God bless you that you found something to retire with. Fred, I remember you telling me about different events in your life. You're an Akron police officer, 5 years as an Akron police officer, went to law school, and while you're in a police officer, and telling me about studying behind Wooster Hawkins Plaza in the middle of the night by the Cruiser Dome night. That's how you manage to get through law school. And I know it served you well, those years you spent as a police officer, because the cops loved you and still do. You became a prosecutor. I know you worked for a short time with the city, but you came to the county. And I remember you telling me about the first time you walked into the county prosecutor's office the first day, and they looked at you, handed you a stack of files, including one that I think was set for trial either that day or the next day. And you told them, what am I supposed to do with this? And the response was, you're a prosecutor, aren't you? Go do it. And you did. Fortunately for the rest of us, we learned a little bit differently after you took over, and at least had some guidance from folks like yourself, and making sure that we were set in the right way. All those years, you worked your way up to being the chief assistant, chief of the criminal division. In the process, some of the biggest cases in Summit County. You had to call Rich Muncie to make sure that I got some of the details on the old cases, because they're older than me. But the Milo case comes to mind. 11 arrests, 11 convictions. Murder case out of Bath, for those of you who don't know. First trial was a month long, and back when they still moved cases for change of venue in Columbus. And it was a hung jury. Muncie told me it was hung 10-2 for not guilty. I find that hard to believe, but second trial lasted only 3.5 weeks, and you got convictions, and the trials went on and on from there. I can't imagine why Muncie kept telling me about all these Bath cases that you won. If I'd have known Bath was so dangerous, I might not have moved here. The Dahmer case, where you actually didn't have to try it, but convicted Jeffrey Dahmer, of some of his initial barbecues, for lack of a better word, and the Bath golf course case, where the Bath golf course owner was murdered by his second younger wife, and just big cases that you managed to win on behalf of the office. You were well respected and well thought of by the time I came into the office. And I know the first year I was there was a murder case that came up, and I believe it was in Judge Murphy's court. It was so bad that Sharon Long left for Australia for 3 weeks so that she didn't have to try it. So you jumped in and were going to try the case and asked me if I'd like to help. Totally unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. Boy, what a case that was. All I know, Fred, is you lost that case, but I noticed I said you lost it, not me. But Fred showed me how to work a case, and boy, did we work that case. From having me up at 8 o'clock out in, back then, Franklin Township at the police department, Sunday morning. I got to tell you, being young and single back then and in my late 20s, getting up on Sunday morning and going to the police department at 8 o'clock a.m. to work on a case was not my favorite thing to do. Taught me a lot about how to work cases, taught me a lot about just preparation. We also went to Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina in search of a witness. This is before cell phones. And Fred had us out, had me and him out there looking for this witness. And the long and short of it was the witness was found back in Summit County while we were gone. He, but he was fearless. I remember being out in the deep woods of Georgia looking for this guy before cell phones. And I said, Fred, does anybody know we're here? He said, no. I said, I had visions of us being buried in a shallow grave in that red clay down there, but we managed to make it back. But he taught us a lot. He taught us a lot as prosecutors and as individuals. For example, Summit County back then was the only county around that had open file discovery. The only county around had open file discovery. And I think it was all Fred that just basically had a sense of doing what was right. We're going to give you everything we got. And if we can't win, then we don't deserve to win. We didn't hide stuff, and it was just his sense of doing what was right. I don't like to say that Fred didn't have fun. I remember him telling me a story while we were out doing some of the cases we were working on about going to a conference with, I want to say it might have been in New Orleans, and him and John Shoemaker lost a rental car. I don't recall exactly how it was that he completely lost the car, but it took them, I want to say, a couple of days before they found it. So I know that at least he and John liked to have fun back in those days. Fred was the Prosecutor of the Year, Ohio Outstanding Assistant Prosecutor of the Year, not once, but twice, 1982 and 1992. He spoke with organizations all over the state. He helped put together the direct indictment program, the career criminal program, the appellate division of the prosecutor's office, worked on the statewide computer program for prosecutors throughout the state back in the 90s. He was respected throughout the country or throughout the state by prosecutors everywhere. Fred, I can't think of a more deserving person than you for this. I guess I'm gonna end this with one story, and that story is this: when Fred would hire somebody in the office, he would come around and he would say, "Do you know this person?" Because he wanted us all to know whether or not it was the right thing to do, or if we had any pluses or minuses. One time he came around to my office and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about hiring Lynn Lambert. What do you think about her? Do you know her?" I said, "Well, I know a little bit about her." I said, "But I'll tell you what, Fred, if you're going to hire her, let me train her. I don't want the women in the office to ruin her." I guess I would say this, Fred, I owe you a big thanks. The rest is history. I can't think again of anybody more deserving of this than you. Enjoy your allocades, and congrats once more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike, for sharing your thoughts and stories with us. I know there are many others who would echo your sentiments. It's now my privilege to introduce our next speaker, Denny Bartek. Denny is not only a past president of the Akron Bar Association, but also a past recipient of the Professionalism Award. I've always known Denny to speak his mind and to hold people to the highest standards. So his nomination of Fred speaks volumes about what kind of a person Fred is. It's my pleasure to introduce Denny Bartek.
Thank you, Susan, for that kind introduction. Good afternoon. I'm honored that I have been asked to speak to you today about a great prosecutor, a great lawyer, and an even greater person, Fred Zuch. My name is Dennis Bartek. I've been friends with Fred since he joined the prosecutor's office in 1973. Fred worked his way through law school as an Akron police officer. After graduating, he was working in the Akron City Law Department when he was recruited to the Summit County Prosecutor's Office by then Prosecutor Stephen Gabalak. Fred wanted to accept the assignment in the prosecutor's office, but he's an honorable guy, and he was aware of the fact that most prosecutors hired people in their own political parties. Stephen Gabalak was a Democrat, and Fred wanted to make sure that Stephen understood that he was a Republican. Stephen didn't care about that. He saw something great in Fred, and boy, was he ever right. So he hired Fred, regardless of his political status, and we go from there. Fred initially, when he entered the prosecutor's office, worked in the appellate division, but subsequently and ultimately became the chief of the criminal division, and in the course of his career was legendary in terms of the cases that he prosecuted and his ability to prosecute. I'm not going to talk to you today about Fred's innovations in the prosecutor's office, such as the career criminal program and the direct indict program. I'm not going to talk to you about the fact that he was selected as Assistant Prosecutor of the Year for the state of Ohio, not once, but twice. I'm not going to talk to you about the fact that anytime someone needed a special prosecutor or someone to conduct an important investigation outside of the Summit County Prosecutor's Office, they came to Fred because of his reputation for fairness and integrity. I'm not going to talk to you about the fact that Fred trained and mentored a boatload of Summit County judges and prominent trial lawyers now practicing in the area. I am going to talk to you about Fred as a lawyer, as an adversary, and as a human being. This is the Professionalism Award. I am certain, as I sit here today, that somewhere, Stephen Gabalak passed away earlier this year. And I am certain, as I sit here today, that somewhere Stephen Gabalak and Buck Gearinger are together looking down on these proceedings and smiling because they know the Bar Association got it right in presenting this award to Fred Zuch. Fred litigated many significant cases against many prominent, high-powered attorneys. One of those attorneys was Attorney Stanley Tolliver from Cleveland. Attorney Tolliver is somewhat legendary. He was a criminal defense lawyer and he was a civil rights advocate. And he advocated vigorously on behalf of his clients, on behalf of members of the community. He did not, because of his vigorous advocacy, always get along with all prosecutors. Attorney Tolliver had several cases with Fred. In one of those cases, just before closing argument, Fred could see that Attorney Tolliver was perplexed. Fred asked him what was wrong in that case, and Attorney Tolliver told him that he had inadvertently left his notes and his trial file in Cleveland when he came down to Akron. Fred reached over and grabbed his trial pad and gave his trial pad to Attorney Tolliver and said, "Here, you can review mine and make any notes you want from it before we do closing argument." Fred did not want to take advantage of the fact that Attorney Tolliver had forgotten his trial pad. Attorney Tolliver, in the course of his career, tried cases against hundreds of prosecutors. But there is one prosecutor that he brought his wife down from Cleveland to meet, Fred Zuch. He and Fred became friends, although they were fierce adversaries in the courtroom, became friends. They both liked to run. They would talk about running. And Fred could tell you that Attorney Tolliver's favorite activity is watching cartoons on Saturday morning with his grandchildren. Attorney Tolliver was impressed by Fred Zuch. Fred had a very high-profile case with another attorney from Cleveland, Attorney Jerry Gold. Jerry Gold had not had any cases with Fred, so he contacted Attorney George Pappas Sr. down here in Akron. Many of you know George Pappas Sr., and you'll hear a bit more about him later on. When Mr. Gold called George, he said to him, "I got a case with this Zuch guy. What can you tell me about him? How is he on discovery? How is he in the courtroom?" George Pappas said to him, "For discovery, you can go up and see him. He'll show you his whole file. He'll tell you the weaknesses in his case." He said, "Then he'll get you in the courtroom, and he will shove the case right up your gluteus maximus." Those of you who knew George Sr. probably realize that I modified the last part of that quote. George Pappas was impressed with Fred Zuch. Fred Zuch prosecuted a case against members of the Hells Angels in Akron. And it must have been an important case to the Hells Angels because Sonny Barger, a legendary leader of the Hells Angels, came in from California to Akron to watch the trial. Fred, even in his early days as a Akron police officer, had a knack or a gift for diffusing difficult situations. So one of the things that Fred did on one of the recesses of the trial is he went back and introduced himself to Sonny Barger and to other members of the Hell Angels who were present. And he would occasionally chat them up during recesses on the trial. But after Fred got his guilty verdict and walked out of the courtroom, Sonny Barger and the members of the Hell's Angels were waiting for him in the hallway. They cornered him. Then they asked him to leave the prosecutor's office to represent the Hell's Angels. Hell's Angels were impressed with Fred Zuch. Any lawyer that ever had a case with Fred Zuch was probably impressed by him. But Fred is not just a great lawyer. Fred is a great person. One of the things that Fred did until the pandemic is delivered mobile meals to shut-ins up in the area of his nursery in Mentor, Ohio. When Fred would deliver the meals to the shut-ins, he would give them more than food. He would spend a little bit of time talking to each and every one of them to brighten up their day, because he's aware of the fact that they may not have a lot of opportunities to have conversations. Fred operates an exotic tree nursery in Mentor. He's done that since he retired. The nursery's been in his family for a very long time. And he occasionally hires seasonal workers. He actually doesn't hire them. He gets seasonal workers from a contractor, so they are not really his employees. Many of them are immigrants. If Fred learns that they have any kind of a problem whatsoever, he goes out of his way to help them as individuals. It may be a health issue with their children. In one case, he had one of his workers that was excited that he bought a washing machine for his wife and then was not able to install it because he didn't have the right outlet. Fred went over and installed the outlet for him. I'm pretty confident that if I called Fred at 2 o'clock in the morning from Cincinnati and said I had a flat tire, he would hop into the car, maybe stopping to pick up his good buddy, Magistrate Judge John Shoemaker, on the way, and he would drive down to Cincinnati and they would repair my flat and rotate my tires. In that vein, Fred had a friend who was injured in an automobile accident, and what I'm about to say may shock everybody here. The insurance company was not treating him fairly. So he asked Fred if Fred could help him. Fred told him he would help him and contacted the insurance company, and the insurance company foolishly still did not treat him fairly. Fred figured out how to work up a auto injury case. He figured out how to file a lawsuit. He studied the rules of civil procedure. He studied the rules of evidence that apply to civil cases. He did discovery. He organized the trial, and then he tried the case in a conservative county, and he got a verdict in excess of the applicable policy limits. He then proceeded in post-verdict proceedings to collect the excess verdict directly from the insurance company because they had not acted in bad faith in the representation of their insured. Fred Zuch is an incredible lawyer. Fred Zuch could have done anything he wanted to in the law, but all Fred Zuch ever chose to do was serve the people of Summit County, and nobody has served them better than Fred Zuch. The last criminal appointment that I accepted was in the mid-'80s, and it was an aggravated murder case. It was a very challenging case to defend, made more challenging by the fact that Fred Zuch was the prosecutor. I came up with a motion and filed a motion that I thought would help the case. And although my motion was novel, I felt that it was supported by existing law, and I felt pretty good about it. I felt better about it because Fred did not file an opposition to it. Did I forget to tell you, Fred is a great legal writer and great legal researcher. Fred headed the appellate division of the Summit County Prosecutor's Office for 3 years. When we got up to court, the judge said to me, "Denny, I'm going to overrule your motion." And I thought, well, that's not so bad. I think I'm going to get a second bite of the apple in this case, And if the first trial doesn't go well, I'll have the benefit of having spoken to the jury and having the transcript. Then Fred pipes up and he says, Your Honor, Denny's motion is well taken. I think you should grant it. I was in a state of shock that any prosecutor would do something like that. So my first thought was, wow, what prosecutor other than Fred Zuch would do something like this? My second thought was, thanks a lot, Fred. You just took away the second bite of my apple. Fred was a person who was always honorable, always did the right thing, and the important lesson that we learn from that is that doing the right thing generally works out. So that's one example that kind of proves that. I'm going to wrap up by talking about the trial of the 20th century, or at least the second half of the 20th century, and that is the Milo murder trial. And actually, there was not one trial, there were twos. It was not O.J., but Mr. Simpson is very fortunate that Fred Zuch was not the prosecutor in his case, or that outcome may have turned out differently. I had a pretty good view of the Milo case from both sides because I represented a cooperating defendant who testified on behalf of the state. Fred Zuch was competing against the real dream team in the Milo case. George Pappas Sr., who is the greatest criminal defense courtroom lawyer I've seen in my 50 or so years of practice. Dean Elizabeth Riley, who has one of the greatest, if not the greatest, legal mind of any person that I've ever met. And Bob Hunt was a really, really good lawyer in his own right. Fred was by himself, but I think that Fred would tell you that he had a dream team of investigators working with him. Unfortunately, two of those investigators have passed away within the last couple of years, but one of those investigators, Rich Muncie, is watching today. The Milo case was a very difficult case to prosecute. Fred Zuch had strong evidence of a conspiracy by Fred Milo to kill his brother Dean in the first trial, but the trigger man had never been identified, and George was very good at creating the idea that there may have been other people also interested in killing Dean Milo. So if Fred would have the trigger man, he would have a much, much stronger case. His case was based on circumstantial evidence, and it was very difficult. I watched a portion of that trial, and I remember sitting in the back of the courtroom in Columbus, thinking to myself, somebody should tape this trial to show prosecutors how to prosecute and defense lawyers how to defend. Now, Fred and George would fight like cats and dogs in the courtroom every day. And then after court was over, they would go out to dinner together. There was some travel involved in the case for depositions in the other states. They traveled together. They were fierce adversaries in the courtroom and good friends out of the courtroom. In the first trial, a development happened in the latter stages of the trial where the investigators actually located and arrested the gunman in the case. And they took a statement from him, and he agreed to cooperate with them and testify against Fred Milo. The investigators and virtually everybody else wanted Fred to bring that witness, I believe his name was David Hardin, into the first trial to testify. Fred knew that that was not the right thing to do. George Pappas had already developed his trial strategy. He'd not had an opportunity for discovery or to investigate the credibility of this person. David Hardin was a person who would have many credibility issues, so investigating his background was important. But there was enormous pressure on Fred Zuch to use harden and secure a conviction at that point. It likely would have been reversible error, in my opinion, if Fred had done that. And in Fred's mind, it was just not the right thing to do. Fred Zuch is a person who feels that he is going to convict you fairly, and he is going to convict you by the rules, or he's not going to convict you at all. And Fred did not use David Harden in that trial. The jury in that case was hung 11-1 for not guilty. Can you imagine the flack that Fred Zuch would have gotten if it had been a not guilty verdict because he didn't use Donald Harden in that case? Not using him, my friends, that is a profile in courage. Fred Zuch is that type of person. Fred Zuch is a person who always does the right thing. You know, when we hold this professionalism dinner every year, we not only do it to honor the recipients like Fred, but we also do it to honor our profession and to set an example for the rest of us of how to make ourselves better. And a way that we can make ourselves better is practicing like Fred Zuch. Fred Zuch always practiced civilly. Fred Zuch was always well prepared. Fred Zuch was always fair. He fought hard, but he always fought fair. Fred Zuch was always concerned about justice, and Fred Zuch was always honorable. And having all of those qualities, Fred Zuch was eminently successful. Nobody could have been a more successful prosecutor over the course of his career, in my opinion, than Fred Zuch. And the message to the rest of us is that we can always do things the right way. Always do things the way that Fred Zuch did them. Fred, I want to say to you that I am proud of the fact that you are an attorney. I'm gratified that you are my good friend, and I'm thrilled that you're receiving this well-deserved reward today. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denny, for your wonderful tribute. And now we've come to the presentation of the award by our Akron Bar President, Lisa Miller. As a longtime law director, Lisa was especially happy to see the award given to a career prosecutor. She knows the difficulty in practicing criminal law and felt it was important to honor someone who's devoted his career to criminal law while maintaining the highest ethical standards. It's now my pleasure to introduce our president, Lisa Miller.
Thank you, Susan. Fred, congratulations. I could not be more proud to see you presented with the Buck Gearinger Professionalism Award. On behalf of those who practice on the prosecutor side of the bar, we have watched you during our careers. We have seen your relentless search for justice, your innovation and desire to initiate change, all the while never wavering in your integrity and ethics. Thank you for serving as an example to all of us that this path, this choice of a career, while challenging, allowed you to become the standard we can all aspire to. Congratulations, Fred. On behalf of the Akron Bar Association, I present you with the Gearinger Professionalism Award. Fred, if you would like, it's your turn to make a few comments.
Well, I don't quite know how to respond. I'm actually pretty emotional right now, and I'll do the best I can because I can't believe those wonderful, wonderful, kind words from people that I respect very much and have had many, many dealings with. That it's overwhelming, and quite frankly, I'm out of my comfort zone. It's in a good way. It's just really hard to take. I would like to give you my thoughts initially. Obviously, I've been away for 25 years, and this is kind of interesting what my first thought was when Susan Durr called me and told me last October, I believe it was, that I was going to get this award. And Susan and I were driving back from a road trip in New Mexico, so I had a lot of time to think about this, and I wanted to make sure this was right because obviously I'd been out of touch with the community for another career. And so anyways, the first thing that came into my mind, and is that most attorneys, when they get older, obviously, and retire, usually phase themselves out so that most people in the community still know them. My departure was a quick change of professions, not because I didn't like the profession, but I just wanted to try something else. The thing that went through my mind was that probably a majority of the practicing attorneys in Akron, considering that I started 50 years ago and ended 25 years ago, have no idea who I am. They would say, they would see this award and they would say, who is this guy? And I said, how's that going to work? Well, then obviously the flip side of that was, it's really incredible to still be remembered 25 years later from at least my generation. It's just, and those messages were just absolutely spectacular. The one thing I want to tell you is, though, that you guys got stuck with me in a kind of an unusual way. When I left, everybody thought that it was just cool, I guess, that I was a police officer and then I merged into the prosecution, and it was just a real smooth transition. The issue was, for me, when I was in law school, I was not interested in criminal law. I thought I was on the career path to being a labor lawyer. I thought I had a job when I graduated with the National Labor Relations Board. What I thought was going to happen didn't happen. Obviously, I didn't get the job I wanted. I was working for the city of Akron, and basically, you guys got me by default. I changed course and I went to work for the city of Akron. I'll tell you what, and I did not have a very stellar start to my career there. We didn't have too much of a training program. Things were kind of hectic in that office just by design. And I'm going to tell you, my first trial was so bad on my part that the defense lawyer had to help me. And I guess, and when we're looking at the Professionalism Award, that I got my first real dose of professionalism. It was Don Varian. He helped me through this trial. I don't know whether it was because of mercy or because of professionalism or for whatever reason. That's always been important to me, that he stepped across the aisle and bailed me out of a very, very embarrassing situation. The next thing that happened to me was I think the important part of forming my career, and that's what Denny referred to and Mike referred to, of me working for Stephen Gabalak. Stephen Gabalak was a great guy to work for. He was contentious, he was combative, but he was loyal to his employees. You talk about employees being loyal to the boss. Well, believe me, he was loyal to his employees no matter what, almost to a fault. The great things that happened to me in that office were two guys that became lifelong friends, and that was, I was broken in by John Shoemaker, and that's an experience in and of itself. A year later, John broke in Larry Villeman, and I don't know what the chemistry was, but the three of us bonded, and it was a tremendous bond. As you've heard, there was all kinds of things going on in the office. It just was those two guys, as far as friends, and with Denny included and everybody else. But I'm just saying that there was a bond there, and I consider those friendships very, very, very special, and privileged to have those guys as my friends and basically for life. I was fortunate to work for three good prosecutors, three prosecutors that were entirely different in personalities, entirely different in management styles, and the way they ran the office. But I was really privileged to be that I was given liberties by each of those prosecutors, that's being Stephen Gabalak, Lynn Slaby, and our Chief Justice, who was then Prosecutor O'Connor. But they kind of gave me the permission to kind of do my thing. And I guess I'll tell you my thing in a nutshell. And Judge Cosgrove made reference to this, but the way I looked at it, there were lawyers that could out-try me, but I'll tell you one thing, they weren't going to out-prepare me. And And I know prosecutors got so sick of hearing that or hearing me talk about that. And that was my issue. My issue was preparation. Prosecutors would come in and extremely upset if they, and it's really traumatic for a prosecutor to lose a trial. As Denny Bartek would remind me many times when prosecutors would say good things about themselves, is that the propensity and proclivity of juries is to go with a prosecutor. So therefore, when prosecutors lose, it's really pretty upsetting. And I'd have prosecutors come in and they would almost be apologizing, and it would be upsetting to me, because my issue was, it's not this win-lose thing. The issue should be, did you do the best you can in that trial? Did you prepare that case? And I know they were sick of that word of prepare, but those are my issues. So, and we had prosecutors that, in my opinion, just made me proud day in and day out. I'm proud of the accomplishments of these prosecutors. It's just, my reward basically is, and I just from the tributes and the folks that did them, and that's kind of my reward. I think we tried to set the groundwork to do things that the way they should be done, but I think that each prosecutor has to make those decisions. And my reward is every day, first of all, this award is wonderful, but every day when I read something or see something in the paper of one of our prosecutors and I see their accomplishments, or I see that they did this, or it's judged this, and all these things I see, it just is like, did I have a small part in making that prosecutor kind of, or that defense lawyer or that judge kind of take the path that we kind of tried to prompt in the first place? And it's just and I know it's not a big thing, but it's just something that really, really, is inspiring to me, and gives me a real reward that just really keeps on giving. Professionalism, and Denny told me, he says, usually there's even when they used to give this presentation before, that somebody would actually talk on professionalism. We've heard those comments, but I got a really nice note from attorney Bob Brown. I will not know Bob well, but it was a short letter a congratulating letter. It was really interesting how he phrased this. We can talk about all those different words about professionalism, ethics, and everything else. And he said, and he just, this is so basic. He said, it is you treat people the way you want to be treated in similar circumstances. And how much simpler can it get than that? That just really hit home. Considering the folks that are on the prior recipients, this is a tremendous honor. It's really just hard to, I don't quite articulate the way I used to, I'm sure, but it's just, when somebody chose to name this award after Buck Gearinger, somebody really hit a home run on that. I can just tell you, the award has got the appropriate name on it. I really want to, and I got just a quick shout out of some few people in the prosecutor's office that if I don't do it, I'm going to be upset with myself. I heard a couple of the names mentioned, but I can't mention the prosecutors. There's just too many of them, and they're doing too many great things that are former prosecutors. But I got to do a shout out for some of these folks, and it's Lee Mattis, the go-to guy in our office. Marion Pongrants ran the grand jury, never had to worry about a thing, and then pity the police officer that was late for his session. Rebecca Spilios, she kept me on a level, straight path. If there was anybody that was supposed to get a professionalism award, she should be at the top of the list. And the other thing that I think is important is the courtroom, the support staff. All of our courtroom secretaries, the appeal secretaries, and property secretaries, that's what made our office run. And they get so little recognition and are so underappreciated. I just can't, I just have to say those kind of things or things for support. A couple of investigators, Ed Duvall Sr., he gave instant credibility. Not only was he a career law enforcement officer, but he gave instant credibility to the career criminal program. Ed Duvall Jr., Helmut Clem, fearless investigators. And when Denny mentioned the dream team, and that was Larry Monchelov, Rich Muncie, and Bill Lewis from the Milo case. I was able to try that case by myself, but believe me, I had great co-counsel with me all the time. Those guys kept me, it was an unbelievable pleasure to work with guys that were that, the capabilities that they had, that they produced, and they were the ones that made that case. In conclusion, Charlie Pongrantz, he was the gold standard of crime scene processing. I will really am honored because of the prior the prior recipients of this award. To be included is quite an honor. I appreciate the Bar Association's focus on professionalism. I mean, and that's, I'm sure that's not the case everywhere in the world here. It's the way it should be. I think in this day and age and what's going on in our world, we should be sitting here counting our blessings. And I think having the group of folks that I saw is a blessing to me. The way that the tribute was done is basically overwhelming. So I thank you all. I thank the Bar Association, and I want to thank my true blessings in life is my family. Cinda, she told me to keep it short. I don't think I quite did. But anyways, the greatest partner in life, my son, Adam, daughter, Sarah, their spouses, Andy and Amanda, and our beloved granddaughter, Ayla. Thank you all.
Thank you, Fred, not just for your remarks, but for your years of service and being the type of attorney and person that we should all aspire to be. That's going to conclude our program for today. On behalf of the Akron Bar Association and the Professionalism Committee, I want to thank you for all for joining us today. I also again want to thank the Akron Bar staff for all their work putting this together. And a big thank you to our presenting sponsor, Koblenzer, Orendorf and Associates. A final thank you to our speakers, and another big thank you to Fred Zuch for being such a wonderful model of professionalism for our legal community. Be safe, everyone.